Hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, part 2 and the finale of Lighting Up the Star Destroyer. When we left last week's show, we had just finished doing all of the engines on the Tantive 4, and those things blow my mind. I love the way they look. But we now need to start today's build with getting into the bridge and the tower of the ship. Well, it's now time to install the lights on the tower and the bridge. So we need to do some disassembly again. So we'll take off this section right here, both top panels and both side panels. We can now take a 30 centimeter bit light, and right at the top here, we'll place the LED right in between those two bricks or those two bumps there and seal it in with a clear flat piece that they provide with the kit. And then the other half of that cable from the LED can go into a new 6-port expansion port, and that can get placed up in the tower. Well, we now need to take off this panel here to get access inside. And what we need access to really is this yellow brick right in here. So we're just going to take that out. Now what we need to do is just inside here, we're going to run another 30 centimeter bit light, and it will be facing down and just overhang this lip down here. So when we put that yellow brick back in, it will hold it in place so that the LED is shining down on our back end. And then once we're happy with that there, we can take the cable and run it up through into our tower again and plug it into our 6-port expansion port that we put in there previously. We now need a 30 centimeter connecting cable, and we will run it down through our tower here and into the bottom section on the right rear of the ship, and we will connect it to our 12-port expansion board down there. And the other end up top here, we will plug in to our 6-port expansion board, and that will power up our top of the tower. And with those two lights now working, we can put the side panel back on our tower. Well, we're now looking at the back of the ship at the top of the tower, and we need to get another bit light up here. So the first thing we want to do is we want to disconnect this one piece here, this little dome. And as well, we will take off this top panel section. And what we're going to do is we need to take another 30 centimeter bit light. We're going to attach it onto this little bump right here. We'll run the cables up inside, we'll seal it in with a clear dome, and then we're going to plug it in to its own new 6-port expansion port. And now that we have that attached in there, we can put this section back together and repeat the exact same process onto this side, and we'll plug it into that new 6-port expansion board as well. Now at this point, you're going to need your 3P FX board. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a 5 centimeter connection cable. We're going to plug it into one of the out ports of this, and then plug it in to that 6-port expansion board that we just used for those two lights. We're then going to take another 5 centimeter connection cable, and we're going to plug that into the 5 volts in plug right here. From there, we will plug that into, remember this one up here? This little 6-port connection that we did that controlled our LEDs up in the back and at the front of the tower. Well, that's where we're going to get our power, and we'll be plugging that input into our FX board into that 6-port expansion. And then, as always, we test. At this point, we have one of our top tower panels, and we need to remove our generator dome and disassemble it. Well, for this application, we have a 30 centimeter large bit light, and it's quite a bit larger than the normal ones that we use. So what we need to do is we'll take this disc of our generator tower and feed our connector down through. We're going to pull it all the way through until our LED is left sitting on top. Just like that. I think for my liking, as always, I like to put a little bit of hot glue on there, so I'm going to glue that to one of these little studs. Now from there we can start putting this back together, being careful not to pinch our cables. And we'll bring it out the front here. And once we get that in place, we can seal it in with one of the angled pieces from our generator tower. Just like that. Now from here we can take our connector and feed it down through the rest of our tower here. And then reassemble the entire dome. And now for this, the cables will just string out through the one side, right between these two antenna-like thingies. That's a technical term. We'll reassemble it, and then our cable will drape underneath, just like that. So complete this for the other generator tower as well. Well, at this point up in the tower, we will take all of our cables over to the left-hand side, and we can now place our right generator dome back in, bringing our cable over to the left. Once you get that installed, you need to take the cable from your generator large bit light that we just did in the dome here, and we're going to plug it into its own brand new 6-port expansion board. We can now take a 5 centimeter connection cable, and in our effects board here, in the second output receptacle, we will plug in that 5 centimeter connection cord. And that will connect to the new 6-port expansion board that you just put to your radar dome, or your generator dome rather. And now the last thing to do is to plug your other generator dome into that same expansion board. You can test, and if everything works, put the whole tower back together. Well, it's now time to do the engines at the rear. So the first thing we want to do is disconnect and disassemble these 3 larger engines. So we're going to need a 30 centimeter large bit light. We will take this piece of our engine and place the LED in the bottom, just like that. Bring our wire out through the side, and then once we get it in place, we can connect our blue dome pieces back where they belong. We can then feed the connector in through the hole of the engine cones here, and we can bring these down in place. And once we get our engines in place, we can push our little yellow tab here, or our little yellow pin, in through our engine block. And then make sure that your cables are not pinched, and put this part back together. And at this point we can feed the wire through our back panel of the Starship. We'll put our engine back where it belongs, and we can hook it up to its own 6-port expansion board. And then you can repeat the process for the other 2 large engines. Once you have all 3 of the large engines done, they can all be plugged into that 6-port expansion board that we placed in there when we did the first engine. From there now, we need to get a pulsing FX board. And what we will do is take a 5-centimeter connection cable, plug one to the input, and take a second cable, 5 centimeter long, and plug it to the output. The output will connect to the expansion board that connected to this left engine. The input will connect to the 12-port expansion board that we put on the right side of the ship much earlier in the lighting job. And with those plugged in, we can now test them, and they pulse just fine. It's now time to do the 4 smaller engines. So we're going to take all 4 out and disassemble them. Well, all 4 of these engines will get assembled in the exact same way. So the first thing we need to do is this little clear blue piece. We're going to feed our connector down through until our LED sits here in the top of that piece. And then we're going to seal it in with our flat little cap piece that goes on top. Once that is done, you can feed the connector down through your engine cone here. Place your rod through. And you'll just feed your wire through as you're pushing it in, just like that. And then this can get fed through the hole of its connecting piece. And again, we'll feed our post through with our wire. Just like that. So that is the process for each one of these small engines. So we can do all 4. We'll install them back onto the ship, and they'll all get plugged into a new 6-port expansion board. And once you get all 4 of the engines connected to the 6-port expansion board, you can use a 5-centimeter connection cable to connect it to the remaining output on our pulse effects board that we hooked up our larger engines to. Once you get that done, it's just a matter of testing. At this point, we can neaten up the wires at the front end of the ship and reconnect and reattach our 2 front top panels. The next piece that we're going to need is off the top of the ship, and it looks like this. In our front section here, we can remove this little angular piece on the very front, and we're going to place a 30-centimeter cool white bit light right there on the end. And we have in the kit one of these slope pieces as well, but it's clear, and we will put that over top of here to hold our light in place. And then we can connect this back onto the ship, making sure that we leave access to this cable later to connect it. It's now time to do the cannons at the rear. So what I have is the top right rear panel, and we need to use some 15-centimeter green micro bit lights. And with the same process that we used in the side cannons, we will install green bit lights in each one of these little cannons. With all the LEDs in place, we will take 2 micro 4-port expansion boards and plug the 2 outer cannons into one board and the center one into another board. Now in each one of our micro expansion ports here, we have a larger socket, one on either end. So in one of the sockets, we will place a 15-centimeter connecting cable, and in the other one, we will place a 30-centimeter connecting cable. And we will do that to each one of the boards. Once we get that done, we can reconnect this panel on our model. At this point now, we can take our 4 cables from the right side and bring them over to the left side. That will be our 2 30-centimeter cables and our 2 15-centimeter cables. Now our two 15s, if you remember when we did the other cannons along the side panels, we used this effects board right here. Now we have 3 more empty ports. So the 15 centimeter cables, we're going to plug one of them into port 2 and one of them into port 3. Okay, those are all plugged in. And at this point, we now need to do the exact same thing with the left side cannons. So we don't need another video of it. The exact same thing. The only difference here is that when you go to hook them up, you will use your two 30 centimeter connection cables that we hooked up on the other side, and that will be how you will connect your cannons. So I'll get that finished up and I'll see you when I get those completed. And with that, the rear cannons are now all wired and functioning properly, and we can move on with the rest of the installations. You now want to take the last 30 centimeter connector cable. We're going to plug it into the 12 port expansion board here on the left hand side rear of the ship, and just bring it forward and tuck it up here somewhere so that we can access it for later. We now need to light the top building sections. So here I have the one on the left. We need to do some disassembly of this panel and a few pieces in here, but we're going to install a 30 centimeter bit light right here, right on that little stud button there, and the wire will be facing down. So we're going to have to remove a few tiles here in order to do that, and it'll be done in the same fashion as we always have. And now we can bring the wire underneath and we can reassemble this section of the building. We can now install 2 more 30 centimeter bit lights. One will go right here and one will go right here. Both of them with the wires coming down to the bottom and inside the building, both of them sealed in with a clear single dome piece. So with those 3 lights installed, we now need to turn it around to the back, and there's one more light to put on here. And for that, we need to take apart a few of these panels. And right on this corner panel right here, the one I just took off, right at the top, we're going to place a 30 centimeter bit light and seal it in with a clear dome. And once you get that installed on there, we can reconnect it to the side of the ship, and then we can put this on top of the ship. We'll take all 4 of these cables from these 4 lights that we just installed. We're going to plug them into the 12 port expansion board on the back left of the ship. Once we get them plugged in and tested, we can reinstall this section. So now I have the upper floor section of the right side. We don't need another video or explanation of it because the lights will get installed, 4 of them. All 4 of them are 30 centimeter bit lights, and they are in the exact same locations as what we did on the left side. They're just mirror image. So I'll get these done. We can plug them into the 12 port expansion board on the right hand side at the rear of the ship, and then we can test and install this upper floor back onto the Star Destroyer. Well, there's only 2 sections of the ship left to light up, and that's these 2 upper front sections. So we're going to put the one from the right side of the ship away, and we're going to concentrate on the left side. So the first thing we want to do, in the same fashion that we've been doing all along, is place a 30 centimeter bit light right here with the cable facing down and a clear dome piece over top of it. We can now take a flashing red 30 centimeter bit light, and on the left side, right at this bottom part right here, that's where we will put this and cover it up with another clear dome. Well, we can now take a 30 centimeter flashing white bit light, and this one is going to get attached right underneath this cone here. We can remove it, place our bit light here with the cable running down to the outside, and then we have our own cone here that came with the kit that's clear, that can go over top and then conceal our LED. And we can now plug all 3 of these cables into an 8-port expansion board. Now remember that 30 centimeter connection cable that we taped up here that went to the back expansion board. This one here now can get plugged in to that 8-port expansion that we just put into this section. As well, the cable from this front light that we put on earlier, that can get plugged in here as well, and then we can reconnect this piece onto the model. And of course, the test. Well, there's only a couple lights left to go on, and they will go onto this front right upper section. So at the front, the first light here will go underneath this piece. So we can remove this piece here off the set. We will place our LED here to hold it in place. We will place this piece back on, and then our clear dome will actually go here for a change instead of actually on the LED. All right, so with that installed, we can flip it around, and right here at the bottom, with the wire going down, covered with a clear round piece, we're going to place a 30 centimeter red flashing bit light. And we can now plug in our last 2 cables into that 8-port expansion that we installed with our last step and reconnect this piece to the model. And that would be, other than testing, that would be it for the wiring. And there you have it. Lighting up the Ultimate Collector Series Star Destroyer Lego set. Oh my goodness, guys. Since I've done this, I honestly can't walk by it where it's displayed without reaching over, flicking that switch, and making silly engine sounds. I just can't. Honestly, I can't. Ask my wife, it's true. This kit from Light My Bricks takes the entire model to a whole new level. Now, it's kind of funny because when it comes to the Lego kits themselves, my favorite Lego kit by far is the Millennium Falcon. But my favorite lighting kit is the Star Destroyer. It is unreal. 77 LEDs. A grand total of 8 cannons, all firing at different times to give it a little more realism. The pulsing engines at the back, the flashing emergency lights of the tower and the power generators, and you know, the flashing lights on the top, the different levels of lights, the underneath, the docking bay, the lit up TIE fighter in the docking bay, the flashing lights down there. Guys, I honestly can't tell you how much I love the way this looks. It was a lot of fun to do from the get-go. It's a lot of work. It really is a lot of work. It took me 3 nights to do this from start to finish. And I have to tell you, if it wasn't for good lighting and some magnifying lenses strapped to my head, I don't think I could have done it. Some of the components are extremely small. Especially the LED units that go into the laser cannons. I have never seen an LED that tiny, and they call them micro for a reason, I guess. They are very, very small, very delicate. I actually broke one during the process, but they provide a few extras. I guess they anticipate that because they are so tiny. Either way, this kit is just phenomenal. I love everything about it. The effects boards are, you can adjust a couple of the effects boards. You can adjust the engines, you can adjust the tower, you can adjust the bridge lights, the emergency strobes, but they suggest what way to basically set them so that you get the best authenticity of the model. And I agree with them. I like the way that those things flash. I like the way they're set. And I honestly didn't like the other settings of the effects board. That's just me. Maybe you might like something different. Either way, guys, this was an absolute blast to do. I love the final results. And if you get the opportunity to get yourself a UCS not Millennium Falcon, a Star Destroyer, if you get the opportunity to get one of those Lego kits, consider getting a lighting kit to go with it, because honestly, that's unreal. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in this week. This has been a blast. I have to apologize. I did not ever expect this to be a two-part series. I don't know what I was thinking. 77 LEDs to install to go as a tutorial with the online instructions on Light by Bricks website. I don't know what I was thinking, that I could have done it in 20 minutes, but I tried, didn't work, so here we are, a two-part series. But just like everything else on my show, I'm never in a hurry. It gets done when it gets done, and hopefully you enjoy the final product that I brought to you today. If you haven't already, guys, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Click that bell so that you don't miss the notifications of future episodes of the show. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and taking the time to stop by here on the channel and check out today's episode. It's been a lot of fun for me. I hope it was fun for you, and I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another Alternative Tuesday.